I'll try and stand away from this because it seems to me that I generally speak loudly, in which case you'll get blown away. Okay, so this is what it said on the list, and this is generally the term which we use to bring everything together. So this is a presentation on behalf of the Hyperlink team, which was drawn from the University of Edinburgh, both Adina and the School of Informatics, and the Research Library at Los Alamos. And you'll recognize, I think, at least one face of Herbert von der Sample later on. So the link rot, we know, is a known problem, and we've understood that, I think, as to where that comes from, what it's about. Content drift is this mix of two things. One is that over time, that URI points to something different, a poker site or something far more exciting. And that's embedded in your PDF and the rest of it. But it's also something to do with dynamic content, because the web now is a web today, gone tomorrow. It's a web now technology. The values change. It said sunny, now it says rain. Governments change their values of figures for import and export. It's possible for conservative governments or some other political party to change what they said in their manifesto. They can go back. So recordness, fixity, is the challenge for us, I think, in this particular world. It's not the same as what the author saw. So this is really a threat to the integrity of this scholarly record that we talk about and hold so dear and is meant to be part of the industry. So we set about investigating this in a project which the proposal was time travel for the scholarly web, and eventually we changed the name of the project to Hyperlink, as in the winter, so those of you who are scholars of Latin or whatever will get the idea. And what we looked at was a way of defining this threat, generating some evidence, some large-scale evidence by text mining a large corpus of data, and then to look towards what might be remedy. And the good news is, I think, that we have done all three of those things, and it's going to be over to you. So to begin with, generating evidence, we had 3 large corpuses. In fact, there was a 4th because we downloaded also 7,000 e-theses and text mined those, but I'm not going to be talking about that particular one. And they were converted from PDFs into XML. I mean, that's another reason, actually, why PDF isn't so clever, because you can't make it computational. You can't do algorithmic things. We located the references, the URIs, which are embedded anywhere, as we know, in the text, not nice and neat and tidily down in the reference section. So that was a major exercise. We extracted each and every one of those, and then we did a little selection to sift out those URIs that went back into the scholarly web, in other words, back, if you like, into the publisher sites and the things which you are very familiar with, but those things that went into the web at large. And overall, about 1 million URIs. So it's a reasonably large-scale investigation. What we're looking at here is references out to the wild web. So some of the things that go back into the scholarly resources should be known to us, and are still a problem in the sense that archiving of content from serials issued on the web, using clocks, Portico, etc. I could have given another talk about keepers registry so that we know what we're looking after and know what's at risk, etc. So we've got a world there which, by and large, has its own fixity. Then there's the rest about the World Wide Web. And that is where we need to add some fixity to what is inherently dynamic. I mean, the malleability of the web, of the digital, is wonderful, but if we want some recordness, we've got to add some sense of fixity. And that was our focus. Well, as it happens, more and more references in the scholarly literature is being made to the wild web, to the web at large. So here's 2 corpuses, the PubMed Central corpus and the Elsevier corpus. And you can see an extraordinary increase there in the references made in both corpuses, extraordinary increase in references to the World Wide Web. So we then said, let's ask 2 questions. Firstly, is it still live? Or can you still get it? In other words, does link rot in some sense exist there? And then, is there a memento? Because we were using the memento infrastructure developed by Herbert and his team to investigate all the web archives to find out whether there was a memento of that round about the time of publication. So we had a sort of space around that to see whether or not there was any prospect that web archiving, routine web archiving in some ways, incidental web archiving, would have put that copy, the thing which was referenced in the article, into a web. And then there was some further work to be done to see whether or not there was content drift or not, or whether it always said the same thing. It always said rain. I mean, if it was a weather channel for Bergen, it would always say rain. But otherwise, it would change. So here are two conclusions. When we looked for the PubMed Central corpus, 3/4 of that 2 weeks after publication had not yet been archived, so it was at risk. But perhaps, fundamentally, you will see there that about 20%, we couldn't find any evidence of that anywhere, either on the live web or had been archived. So 2 weeks after the publication date, 20% of those references to the wild web were gone. So, okay, that's PubMed Central. Okay. What about a commercial publisher? Well, there, I'm afraid, there was a third after 2 weeks. Didn't exist. Incidentally, we've been to Elsevier. I see they're not represented here, but we did visit their headquarters and told them about this. And I hope they shared the same, well, you have the same intake of breath. And that's quite significant. So we stepped on to think about content drift. Well, here we're doing some still doing some work on this, but this is from the Web Archive. So here they're looking over time to see the extent to which the content in that URI had drifted. So there's evidence there that content drift, in addition to the failure to find that particular content at the other end of a URI. So essentially, it's like fish. Over time, fish rot. So if you don't do anything, what you get is a lot of rotten references for your reader, which of course means a defective article, a barrel of rotten fish, or increasingly rotten fish, and perhaps sale of rotten goods, perhaps. So the remedy, as we know, for fish is to freeze it. We have a way of dealing with fish. So we think about when is it best to do something. We thought therefore about 3 workflows. Now this is just our way of thinking, where is it good to intervene in the fish freezing business? Typically we might think in the preparation, when somebody's writing their article, they're looking around, finding references that they think are important, perhaps at the point of submission in the publication stream. Perhaps at the other end, once all that process has gone on, and it's now for sale. It's on the outside, if you like, for reader access. So these were just 3 opportunities to looking at what happens at the natural history of an article and its associated fish. Well, maybe the best time, clearly, is at the time of capture, when the authors, they're looking for content. And collectively, we have lots of authors as teams, but also sometimes when an author thinks that something is particularly significant, or they will have to prove it later. So we thought then about how we could take practical remedy into the business of URIs, of references. The idea perhaps is to take a snapshot and put it in a safe place. So we've got a number of web archives already exist, and they do some of this on incidental archiving, but they will also, some of them, take instruction and put it in a safe place. So we worked with a couple of them. Funnily enough, it was fish, and we worked with the Icelandic group, but that's neither here nor there. So we looked at how we might also embed this idea into software that was used in one of these processes. Typically, in the preparation, we're looking at the note-taking software for the author. And that's obviously the best time. There's also the submission process with various manuscript systems and submission systems. And clearly, that's something I will be prompting you perhaps to tell me and yourselves where's the right place. And then there's the right at the end when it's on for sale. So in the case of the preparation or note-taking stage, So Tiro is one of that listed range of software, and it's open source software. So we got hold of the software and we wrote some code to illustrate what we think might be done. So we wrote a plugin for that. So the plugin we've written isn't necessarily the solution, but it's a demonstration. We can show you what might be the best way of doing things. And then we can look to, well, we've already had some discussions with EndNote, Mendeley are aware, Reference Manager don't answer our calls, and I'm glad that RefMe turned up today, so to speak. So here we're thinking about what could happen. The idea about the plugin, putting it into software, is you put it under the hood, so that the human doesn't have to do right, doesn't have to know. It's going to be something automatic, almost. So for this, what's been devised is what we call a robust link. So this has got a number of components. Originally, it's got the component, your original link to the web, the simple URI, and then you augment that with the URI of the archive copy plus the date timestamp. So what you get then is a robust link. And that's got a degree of redundancy in it, because if possible, it might be that that particular archive where you put something, that would be unavailable. But at least you've got the time date, and so you could do your own surfing or digging around to try and get that. So it's got some redundancy in. But that then is a way of adjusting markup. So you are embedding extra information. You are providing the web now with the means to know its own history. So what should we expect of the publisher? Apart from the sale of good goods that don't rot within 2 weeks, say. Just saying. Hashtag just saying. So the thing is that what can you do? Well, actually, you know better than I what you can do, and therefore, to some extent, this is a provocation of the idea, the concept, the phenomena, the extent of it, with some ideas in there as to how yourselves, because I'm at the university, and universities can't easily control some aspects of this. We can do some things for doctoral theses, perhaps, because we're responsible for those, but this is really your world, and we need to work with you to help this become not a problem. So at the point of ingest, we've got some ideas, and at the point of sale of use, we've got some ideas. So the first one on publication and the ingest, the first thing is, please do not strip away all the robust links. We have had the irony of publishing on this phenomena, and the publisher took away all the references to the robust links and only put the simple ones in. So we've had to somehow put a file up somewhere else to say, here's a pointer to that file, and then you'll see all the robust links. And so this is one plea. Now, okay, maybe you are not the submission systems, but you are the customers of the submission systems. The second, then, is how to batch as part of your ingest process, your editing process, your proof checking, as we heard about how automatic proof checking, so that the author can be assured that what is actually the URL that works is the one that corresponds to the text where they said it was raining or said it was sunny, whatever the matter might be. And secondly, at the access point, we've got a phenomena which Herbert has been developing called link decoration, which is a way of tagging existing HTML in order that you can then get, using the Memento infrastructure, to something which is close to what it was that was being referenced at the time. So in some sense, this is all transactional in some sense, but the earlier one, both in terms of the publication and the preparation, is proactive, trying to do it in a timely fashion. And here we have at the post-publication, the access thing is making it much better for your reader than it otherwise would be. So link decoration is a mixture of JavaScript and also a use of an API onto the Memento infrastructure. So this is to do with post hoc robust links, if you like. So it enables some value to your readers to find what it was that the author had in mind. And it's okay. It's much, much better than not. And there's a facility that you could use here to enhance that platform to make sure that there aren't misunderstandings, because somebody makes a link to a particular website and the author's going on about the answer being 42, but it's clearly 303 in that link, because there's a distance. You can see how that can happen. or it's not available, or it's a poker site, or something far more exciting. So the other idea is to be proactive and ingest the website, parse the URIs, take them out, separate out the ones from the whitelist, and then create these snapshots to make sure that, in some sense, we're beginning to suppose that the published article is not just the marks on paper, so to speak, or the digital paper, it's also what it depends upon. It's part of the integrity of the argument that the author is making, and therefore it's part of the published work. And remember also, as reference has been made, that more and more things that go on the web will be of the web, not just through the web. In other words, they will be these larger constructs of research objects or of things related data and the rest of it. They will be embedded URIs throughout the whole of that object. It will be of the web rather than through the web. So what we've looked at here is the simple case where something, typically a PDF, was published through the web, where its dependence on the web was very predictable and quite limited. But what's coming is far greater dependence. So the assurance that the feet on which the statement, the authoritative statement rests, they are properly put somewhere. So our remedy in that case was a plugin for OJS, the Open Journal System, because again, it's open source software and we had the prospect of doing something. So we wrote some code and wrote some algorithm and demonstrated that. This is available for others to look at. So, I'm not going to name names, but of whatever whatever publication systems that you are using, there is prospect of them using this algorithm, and it's given away. It's the algorithm for doing things. On the other hand, we've also sketched out some prospect of an archive, of an infrastructure, a hyperlink, hyperactive infrastructure, whereby links are made through that, and we can do some of that negotiation to enable that. And that just means good uses of an API. And that might be a good transitionary move. And that allows people to learn what they want to do themselves, as well as what they want to outsource in different ways. So the summary, I think, of the project was that we defined that threat. I hope it's a cogent argument. We've quantified it. I hope it's convincing that it exists. We haven't made it up. It's not a joke. And also there is some form of remedy. So what we're trying to do, the project having finished, is tell you about it, but also engage in a way in which there is real impact. And the impact is really for yourselves to make, and we will do our best to assist that, because otherwise we think that there is a train crash, a wreck path on its way. With that, we look forward to frozen fish with good metadata tags so that we ensure the integrity of the scholarly record. Thank you very much indeed.